And what happened is like in 2018-19, if I look at the financial year 2018-19 report submitted by the Central Pollution Control Board, all the states have given the data of how much plastic waste are they generating. So the numbers or the data or the response of the state pollution control boards has increased drastically compared to the earlier financial years. So that we have covered in the status of the plastic waste. And then we move to identification of the plastic waste in our day-to-day life. So the whole idea of the training program is to give you an idea of plastics. So plastics, from being a single one word, so it might turn into different streams, like you know I always say this, that plastic is kind of a habit. So once you start recognizing, or once you start identifying plastic, you'll get a curiosity of oh, what is this plastic item made of? So that's what we want you to inculcate in you. Like once you see a mobile phone, you try to search what is this mobile phone made of. Once you look at a water bottle, what is the water bottle cap made of? What is water bottle made of? What is the outer the design, or the banner where the brand of the water bottle is printed? We wanted you to explore that. So the whole exercise which we did in identifying the plastic is to create that habit of identifying plastics. Then we move to the rules. So I always say that these rules, plastic waste management rules, are very strongly made rules. uh, so so the rules are very strong in identifying the stakeholders. So it's like each of the stakeholders are very clearly identified in the rules, and the roles and responsibilities are clearly given to this uh, stakeholders. Although there are a lot of loopholes in the plastic waste rules as well, so these loopholes are clearly identified and put before you, so that you can work, or you can somewhere down the line know about what are the things missing in the plastic waste management rules, or what are the loose knots in the plastic rules. And then the other big problem with the rules or with the legislature is the definition of single use plastic. So India doesn't have a clear definition of single use plastic, although it has promised on different international platforms that we'll let go of the single use plastic by 2022. We don't have a clear definition. So we tried to identify how each of the states are banning plastics. I mean, what made them to ban? Let's say Karnataka has banned some 16 items, Maharashtra some 14 items. So what is the idea behind getting this 16 items? What is the idea behind identifying the 16 items, so that we can define single use plastic? So CSE worked on a committee by FICCI, FSCCI, FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Institute. So, in defining the single-use plastic, what are the items that needs to be banned in a phase-wise? So we have covered that. And then we move to how states are defining, or what is the model behind the ban of plastic bags. Like we spoke about how Delhi had a ban on plastic bags still since 2012, and we find a lot of plastic carry bags in Delhi. And then we talked a lot about multi-layer packaging. So what is the problem behind multi-layer packaging? What is MLP made of? We spoke about that. And the major provision with the rules, according to the section 9A of plastic waste management rules, is the extended producer responsibility. Although India do not have a proper guidelines on EPR, extended producer responsibility, the recent guidelines are still in the public domain, and they are open for, I guess now they are not open for public comments, but the guidelines are underway. So we spoke a lot about extended producer responsibility, and and some international case studies on EPR as well. That's what we covered during the module 1. And module 2 would be mostly concentrating on the practical aspects of the plastics. We'll have live sessions from some external faculty. We'll be concentrating on circular economy, we'll be concentrating on recycling of plastics. We'll also talk about plastic free living as well. So now it's open for questions. Yeah.
Uh,
So uh, we can take some questions and comments. Hello. Yeah, if any of the participants have some questions, they can either drop the question on the chat box, or you can either unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Hello, Dinesh sir. May I?
Yeah,
May I ask?
yeah, Nikhil, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
The question which I shared on the forum also, it was something similar. It
Uh-huh.
was like when I was going through the plastic waste management rules
Uh-huh.
and the bans that were imposed by different states, I noticed that it's been mentioned that it's okay if you are using these plastics maybe for the purpose of exports, maybe as a packaging material in exports. So how exactly does that work? So is it okay when we use it for exporting? So aren't we like following a narrative where it's okay to pollute some other place but not our own? Since UK already has that our waste, our responsibility kind of thing.
Yes, Nikhil, that's pretty unfortunate that it's not only with India, it's with the other countries as well. So if you look at the legislatures of India and other countries as well, it clearly says that let's talk about India and China also. So China has banned plastic imports from all plastic waste imports from all the other countries until unless it is 99% pure plastic. India also did close the import of plastic wastes starting from April 2019. But the other thing is like companies, the plastic manufacturing companies can still go ahead and export the plastic waste. This is one thing because there are a lot of even if when we talk about the bans, a lot of livelihood issues come into play. That's what come into play because your exports of any country should be more than the imports of any country. So that might be one of the reason. Of course, it's still the NIMBY syndrome. Like okay, the plastics which companies from my country are producing are not polluting my water bodies, or not introducing this plastic waste into the Indian market or the country's market. It is somewhere exporting, so that's not my problem. This is what the legislature look at it as of right now. But this is unfortunate. I mean, although we have a lot of international treaties like which prevents the flow of plastics from developing countries, developed countries into the developing countries, like the Basel Convention recently added the plastic waste into the list of items. But it's still like India and the other countries also, even China allows export of plastics. It's still and the other thing which I want to tell you about even in the country is like all the plastic waste control, or all the regulations, let's say the reduce, reuse, recycle, all these concepts are at the consumption level, not at the production level. When I say consumption level, let's look at all these r's: recycle or reuse, let's say reuse or reduce or refuse. All these things are it's putting a lot of responsibility, or throwing the ball into the court of the consumer or the user of the plastic, saying that look, we'll produce the same quantity of plastic which we produced last year, but uh, you reduce your consumption. That's what the industry talks about. So I've never seen a legislature where it says like last year this corporate or this company has produced 10,000 tons of plastic waste, so this year reduce your production capacity to 9,000 tons. No one talks about, or none of the legislature put some imposition on the production side. I guess that answered your question, Nikhil.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Nikhil. So we have some questions in the chat box as well. Anupriya Agarwal says, my question is regarding solid waste SM rules 2016. What would be considering and impairing the functionality of the product? Anupriya, if you can uh, elaborate that question. I did not understand that question. I'm sorry. If you can elaborate that question, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Ms. Anupriya? Okay, I'll move to the next question. Mr. Ajuraj says, out of 7 types of plastics, which type of plastics are recycled in India? If no, what are the reasons? So, Aju, out of the 7 type of plastic, I can say, I can confidently say that the first type 1, PET plastic, all your water bottles, all your carbonated drink bottles, the PET bottles, PET, code number 1, is widely recycled, and the recycling percentage is somewhere around 96%, which is more than the European or the US markets. Apart from that, HDPE is also recycled, PP is recycled, PVC is also recycled. Out of 7, all the top 5 apart from LDPE is very little recycled, very low. I cannot give the exact numbers of HDPE, LDPE, PVC, PP or PS. Sorry, PS is not recyclable. PP, but I have the number, the recycling percentage only for the PET. Apart from that, 1 to 5 are recycled, but at a very low rate. Okay, Ajay says, will here be something more on microplastic in next module? And if possible, can you share some reports related to microplastics, especially in Indian environment, plus what work CAC is doing? Ajay Kumar, as of right now, we are not mostly working on the microplastic. So when I say microplastics is actually 2 ways. One is the primary microplastics, and second is the secondary microplastics. So the primary microplastics are the one which are intentionally added to a material. Let's say in the cosmetic industry, microplastics are heavily used. All your scrubbers, a lot of face masks, face gloves use a lot of microplastics, and India doesn't have a regulation which controls the use of microplastics in any of the products. So the second one is the secondary microplastics, which is created by breaking of plastics which are less than 5 that is microplastics. If you look at the studies as well, India does not have maximum number of studies or the major studies done. The only studies done as of right now, and I know, are 2 studies done, one in the Yamuna region and Ganga region, that is in Agra and Allahabad. These are the only 2 regions where microplastics data is collected. A study is done to find out how much of microplastics has entered the river bodies. Apart from these 2 studies that are done by UNEF, I believe, and the name of the initiative is called Countermeasures. So apart from the countermeasures, there is no study done on microplastics in India as of right now. If someone else know about any other microplastic study that is done, you can please share. But as of right now, what I know is only about this countermeasures. But I can provide you the research done at the international level. I can provide you the data on the some reports on microplastics at European level.
Am I audible now? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, Anupriya,
Yes.
you're audible.
Okay. Okay. My question was regarding the conditions that have been given in SWM rules 2016 in the document that was shared. So it says a lot of things. So firstly, my question was that are these rules mandatory to implement? I mean, what is the status of these rules currently?
Okay, Anupriya, you're talking about the plastic waste management rules, right? Okay, so initially the rules were very much limited to the municipal corporation or the range of the municipal corporation. Now the rules, the scope of these rules has increased. So the plastic waste management rules are applicable everywhere. Might it be a rural area, may it be a Gram Panchayat or Nagar Nigam or Nagar Panchayat, anywhere. It's even applicable in the cantonment areas. It's applicable in the areas which are under the DGCA. So none of the authority or none of the institutions are left aside from the rules. So it covers everything.
Yeah, but so I was going through the rules and I noticed that most of the things that are written there are not actually implemented on ground. So is it not mandatory to implement these?
Yes, Anupriya, it's very much mandate that these rules are being implemented in the every urban local body, but the implementation status is very low because there's no like assessment that happens. If you look at the annual report that is being submitted by every state to the Central Pollution Control Board, the data is also very low. Let's say every state has to say at the end of the year how much did they collect, how much did they recycle. That data is still missing. But even the rules are very strong, the implementation of the rules on ground is still at a very nascent stage.
Okay. So it says in the conditions in point B, it
Hmm.
says that it says, I just read out from the document
Yeah,
itself
sure,
that
sure.
it says that the thickness has to be 15 microns,
Okay.
except where the thickness of such plastic sheets impair the functionality of the product. But what would be considered as, impairing the functionality has not been defined anywhere in the document properly.
Yeah.
So this gives a lot of scope for anyone to state that, okay, this thing is impairing the functionality of my product, and like I cannot make the thickness more than 50 microns. So are there any rules with regard to this? Like what do you call as impairing the functionality of the product?
I mean, yeah, it's clearly not defined impairing the functionality. The only thing which is like a standard measure is to have this 50 microns is also not with all kind of plastics. It is only with the polythene bag or the carry bag with handles or without handles. That is what the rule says, that uh, anywhere in the India, plastic carry bag with handles or without handles cannot be produced which is less than 50 microns. So the other very interesting concept is the biodegradable plastics. I'll come to your question also. So let's say Indian rules doesn't talk anything about the biodegradable plastics. It only talks about compostable plastics. So there are rules for compostable plastics, and the plastic waste management rules doesn't talk anything about biodegradable plastics. So the research is not much into the biodegradable plastics, and we don't know how a biodegradable plastic reacts. So let's say I'm a company who's producing biodegradable plastic. I can put biodegradable plastics into the market without any approval from the Central Pollution Control Board or the State Pollution Control Board. If at all I am producing that plastic carry bag which is greater than 50 microns. So my rule says only about 50 microns. So there are a lot of chances of other plastics, new plastics entering into the market without any approval, without any concern from the CPCB or SPCB with more than 50 microns. And this product based impairing the product functionality of the product. So this thing is like, let's say we are talking about packaging
Functionality.
functionality. Sorry. Yeah, Anupriya, you're saying something. So the rule says
No. I was saying, yeah, functionality of the product. I
yeah,
was agreeing with you.
yeah. So if at all, let's say we are packaging, we are manufacturing a product, and we have to wrap that product in order to ship it properly or ship it safely to the consumer location. So if at all my plastic thickness is needed to be low, or let's say a plastic that is being used inside a product, let's say a product that is being used inside for covering the motherboard or something inside the product, and if at all I have it more than 50 microns, if it affects the functionality of the product, that's what the rule says, and it doesn't define the how it is impairing the functionality of the product. That's a very loose, and I mean the producers have a lot of chance to you know uh, divert it anyway or change it anyway. I mean the
Yeah.
interpretation might be in any way.
Sorry for the rude interruption. I
Yes,
wanted
Nikhil.
to I wanted to just add on to what Anupriya was asking. Um, if actually I wanted to Dinesh sir said that
Yes.
you
Yes.
don't need any particular certification from the CPCB for producing the biodegradable versions. But I think I read that you need to be in order to manufacture or introduce biodegradable plastics, you need some certification from the Central Pollution Control Board.
Yeah, I'll answer that, Nikhil. So that's not for the biodegradable, that's for compostable plastics.
Yes, exactly.
Could you like differentiate it for me very briefly?
Yeah. So, if I say biodegradable, every plastic is biodegradable.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Since plastic has carbon content in it, it is biodegradable. It's a basic chemistry that any element that have carbon is biodegradable.
okay.
What happens with the plastic is like plastic is biodegradable over a longer period of time. Let's say 100 years or 500 years. We don't know that. These are all the estimates because none of us has seen plastic 100-year old decomposing. So it's an estimate that it breaks in some 100 years or 400 years or 500 years. But if at all you look at the biodegradable plastics, what happens is like one of the carbon molecule is replaced with any substitute molecule. That's when it breaks the plastic in a relatively less quantity of time. Let's say a plastic that takes 100 years time to break, it takes maybe 5 years or 2 years, or some plastics might be 6 months as well. So it breaks easily.
Yes.
That is the biodegradable plastic. But it gives rise to the other problem of microplastics as well. So you're breaking the plastic very easily and it becomes microplastics. It gives to the other problem. So the compostable plastic is one that uh, after decomposition, let's say if a plastic leaves a residue, that is biodegradable plastic. A plastic after decomposing leaves only carbon dioxide, moisture, and compost with no residue, no inert residue. That is called compostable plastic.
Much like a composting pit, you're saying.
Exactly. And there are specific rules for compostable plastics as well, and the standards are defined by ISTM 17800, I believe. I'll check that number and I'll share that document as well. So the compostable
So,
plastics are under that standard, ISO standard. Yes,
so
Nikhil.
that I've come across these oxy biodegradable bags. So they
Mhm.
are actually
Okay.
the biodegradable ones,
Yes,
which are
biodegradable. So if
okay.
you look, oxo biodegradable plastics are banned in a lot of European countries because that also gives rise to, when a lot of companies says that this bag is not plastic, this breaks into, or this is biodegradable plastics, what they say is like it just breaks, and that too at an industrial level. So, I mean, this whole misconception of use this plastic bag, throw it away, it doesn't harm the environment, it just goes back into the earth. That is false. If someone claims that, that is not true.
So I should still feel guilty even if I'm taking an oxo biodegradable plastic because
Exactly,
I thought that
exactly.
was a viable option.
No,
So now
Nikhil. I
even
mean,
that's taken off the table.
yeah, these are all the terms which I guess the industry introduced or throws to the consumers. Like, oh, when you feel very much, concerned about your plastic usage, the industry puts you what do you say, a jadoo kind of a thing, saying that, oh, you can use plastic because this is oxo biodegradable, because this is biodegradable. So all these terms are thrown at the consumers. This is what I feel. But and the recycling part, we'll talk about the recycling part of this oxo biodegradable plastics as well. Let's say I have a conventional recycling facility which can handle a PP, okay, or a LDPE. So let's say my facility can handle all the plastic carry bags. So let's say in my lot of 1 ton of recycling LDPE bags, the other LDPE biodegradable or oxo biodegradable or compostable plastics gets mixed into my lot. The whole quality of my plastic lot is gone. That's a very big challenge because the segregation levels are still low. How do you expect a LDPE biodegradable plastic carry bag to be differentiated from a common or the LDPE general LDPE plastic bag which we use right now?
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge.
So what Anupriya said about the loopholes, just furthering from there,
Mhm.
the very fact that the
Yes.
2018 amendment allowed for a broader definition of MLP, that itself does it indicate to some kind of nexus between the industry and the regulators and the legislators, or what was the main aim behind those amendments?
Uh, Nikhil, I can say that because 2016 rules were very strong, and we thought that industry is not ready. I mean, by 2018, all the MLP, we very much eagerly waiting. What will the industry do? Such a big industry, multi-layer packaging industry. What will they do? Because by 2018 March, they should let go of all the MLP packaging. But very strangely, 27th March 2018, that's when the amendment came. It said that because everyone know that multi-layer packaging is a non-recyclable thing. So just by adding two phrases saying that if at all it is not recyclable, non-recyclable, what does the term say? All the multi-layer packaging which is non-recyclable, which is non-energy recoverable, and of no alternate use. I mean, what sort of a phrase is that? With no alternate use. Matlab, let's say a multi-layer packaging is put in a plastic water bottle, stuffed in a plastic water bottle, and if at all you are using it as a blockage, that is also an alternate use. I mean, multi-layer packaging, you stitch it together and use it as a covering or shield for water rain. That is also an alternate use. So I cannot clearly claim that there's a nexus between the regulators and the industry because I don't have any things strongly to claim that. But I believe that there must have been some pressure, or I don't know. I cannot say that also, but it's very unfortunate that the rules has been very loosened in that way to still encourage the use of multi-layer packaging even after 2 years. So I regularly hear or come across this argument saying that industry needs time, but how much time does they need? 2016 and we are sitting in 2020. Although I accept that there's a lot of time given to the industry, and even at the global level there's no alternative as of right now to multi-layer packaging, and whatever things are done are pretty low. Let's say there is this very recent thing which happened with a very famous brand in India, very famous cold drink brand in India. They came up with some percentage of uh, packaging, the chips packets, with alternate materials. They did not use the multi-layer packaging, but they used compostable material. Also, no, not compostable material. Sorry, biodegradable material. And they advertised or they propagated it very heavily, saying that look, we tried to evade the multi-layer packaging from our packaging. Total packaging, but what percentage of it are they talking about? Let's say if that company using 10,000 tons every year, so is it 1% of it, or 0.1 or 0.001 percentage? It's just an initiative like trying, oh, we are very much environment friendly. So all these corporates try to do it. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll move to the questions from the chat box. So Ajay Kumar will more microplastics. Okay, this is done. Anupriya,
Just a follow up on this.
yes, Anupriya.
So regarding the compostable bags that you were talking about, are there
Anupriya, we
any
lost it.
toxicity
We
limits?
lost.
So it says that it shouldn't be toxic after it gets decomposed. Hello.
Anupriya,
Anupriya,
we
we're
So
not
it
able to
lost
says
hear
you.
that
you. Can you simply write your question in the chat box,
it
please?
shouldn't be toxic
Yeah,
after it decomposes.
Anupriya, we cannot hear you. Can you write down your question in the chat box, please?
Hello.
Yeah, Anupriya, please write down your question in the chat box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
So,
Hello.
yeah, Anupriya, please write down your question in the chat box.
Yeah, she's writing.
Okay. So I'll move to the other questions. So
I think Ajuraj's question was answered. Next question is, I think, Aniket's question.
yeah, is there a database of identified vendors for compostable bags? Also, the cost of compostable bag is in the common facilities. Aniket, we don't have any success stories of compostable bags as of right now, but there's a database on the Central Pollution Control Board, the list of around 8 companies which are approved by the CPCB for the compostable bags. You have this vendors list on the CPCB. Lakshmi Narayan says how to use single-use plastics, how to reuse single-use plastics. Lakshmi Narayan ji, what I feel is like, rather than reusing single-use plastics, you can refuse single-use plastics, because reusing, let's say a straw, let's talk with an example of a straw, which is single-use plastic, you cannot reuse it again. So rather than using a reusable or looking for a reusable single-use plastic straw, because it's clear with the definition which says that single-use plastic is intended for a one-use purpose. So rather than going for a single-use straw, you can buy a steel straw which you can use many times, use it and use again. Okay, next question is Nikhil Jacob, what exactly are oxo-biodegradable? I guess that I answered this. And Ben, can you please name plastics that is hard to be recycled and how can they be disposed of properly? Okay, one plastic that is very difficult to recycle is PVC, polyvinyl carbonate. All your hose pipes of your car, all your water pipes, and the outer layer of your wire is made of PVC. PVC is, although recyclable, it happens. Delhi has the largest PVC market in the country. But the problem with recycling of PVC is the carbon emissions with while recycling PVC is it's too high. So it should be in a very controlled environment. That's why PVC recycling of PVC is little difficult. So that's one plastic that is very difficult to recycle.
Hello, Dinesh sir.
Yes, Abhishek.
Sir, let's say if the PET bottle collection and recycling rate becomes 100% in future, then is it okay to use them? I mean that recycling is the ultimate solution or not? If we reach the collection and recycling rate 100%.
So Abhishek, I'll try to give you answer very simply. So recycling is actually 3 ways. One is primary recycling, secondary and tertiary recycling. Primary recycling is one in which a PET bottle is converted to PET pellets and then used back again into a PET. That's the primary recycling. Secondary recycling is the chemical recycling, where your PET bottle is converted to polymers, and that polymer is used for making, I'm saying it by an example. So we'll talk with the PET bottle only. That is the PET bottle converted to polymers and then made t-shirts out of it or some swimwear out of it. That is the secondary type of recycling. And the tertiary recycling is you make a PET bottle and then burn it in waste to energy plant or cement plant or some energy recovery industry and then recover the energy. That is the tertiary recycling. So out of these 3 recycling, the first recycling is one that is being that will contribute to a circular economy, because if you say you're collecting PET bottles 100%, you're recycling it, secondary recycling, and converting it into some liquid and then making threads out of it and then making t-shirts, that is not the circular economy we are talking about. Because let's say you're making t-shirts out of PET bottles, and that when you wash that t-shirt, it still leaches microplastics into the water bodies. So that cannot be considered as the closed loop. So the closed loop is you make PET bottle, recycle it, make PET pellets out of it, and then make PET items. The problem is also with the regulations, because Indian regulations as per FSSAI says that no recycled plastic can be used in food contact items. So a PET bottle, your water bottle, cannot be recycled and cannot be used again to make water bottles. So when the legislation doesn't allow, there's no point of recycling it at 96% or 100% rate and using it to make t-shirts. Does that answer your question, Abhishek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So
Hello, sir. Sir, can you
yes.
hear me?
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
this is Gopika.
Hi, Gopika.
Sir, there are these food containers made up of crop waste, like bagasse or the crop waste so that actually is a substitute for parcel food containers now.
Yes.
So how better is that from the plastic container? Like if you see that from a life cycle assessment point of view, how better is that from the plastic containers that we have now?
Gopika, if at all I consider LCA of plastics with any other material, let's say any rigid packaging material, metal, glass, aluminium, or even for the food crop residue waste, the containers which are made of food crop residue, LCA of plastic would be very much low compared to any other items. But the problem is with even though the LCA is low, the plastic doesn't come back into my recycling streams. That's the problem. So I cannot clearly compare the LCA of plastics with any other things, because even though the LCA of aluminum and glass is high, it comes back into my recycling stream and it gets recycled. That's the reason why I cannot compare LCO of plastic with any other metals. Although all these crop residue items are a great substitute to the plastic, we should look at the percentage of substitution. Let's say one e-commerce industry, the food delivery industry, is using a ton of plastic waste or ton of HDPE material for packaging their food waste. How much can this crop residue alternatives replace that? 1%, 2%? How much can they replace it? The other thing is with the packaging of the liquids by using this alternate materials. That's a very big challenge, where plastic clearly wins over this alternatives. So all these alternatives are at a very primary stages, so it takes a lot of time for them, because I see a lot of startups in this alternatives domain. So I expect them to grow, because it's all the game of demand and supply. Once the demand increases for these alternatives, then might be the supply also goes up and the cost also reduces, because there's a question about cost of the biodegradable plastics as well. Once the production capacity increases, the production cost will come down and the price will also come down.
But again, sir, that will also put forward many other challenges like plastics. Like if the demand increases, then we'll have to produce that much of containers made up of these crop waste. So
Yes,
then
yes.
the planting such crops and so there'll be other challenges regarding that kind of material, right?
Yes, Gopika, but we are not talking about directly, we are not talking about PLA based plastics, because PLA based plastics are made of, let's say, cornstarch or tapioca. We are talking about crop residue, bagasse, because even though there's a lot of demand for the bagasse products, you get, because bagasse is a byproduct of the waste out of making your sugar. So you cannot increase the production of your sugar cane for getting lot of more bagasse. So this might be a problem with the PLA base. Let's say if you are completely dependent upon corn crop for making your plastics, PLA based plastics, then it would be a problem. I mean, affecting a crop cycle or fastening the crop cycle for your plastic demand, then it's directly affects the crop cycle. But if you are talking about bagasse, it will not affect, because I don't see people increasing the corn sugar cane production just because you need a lot of bagasse for your containers or the alternate containers.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next
Madhuri,
question.
can I ask a question? Yeah,
Sorry?
Yeah, this is Madhuri. Can I hear me?
Yeah, yes, Madhuri.
Yeah. So just to add on to Gopika's question, right? And I'll ask my question later. But I feel that the problem is in this use and throw culture, whether it's alternative material or plastic. Because I've been using bagasse thing for last 5-6 years, but you don't use it as an alternative to plastic. You use it as a last resort. You have to look at refusing single use whatever material it comes in, because nature doesn't have so much to give us where we just keep tossing it. So I feel that's something that we need to remember while doing this, that whatever you use, just think about, is there some alternative that I can keep reusing rather than tossing this away?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, I agree with you, because it is the single-use culture of the packaging system that we have
Yes.
now that we have to change actually,
Yes.
not the material as such.
Yes, so we are all looking for convenience. So just to add to my question, Dinesh, actually your material is really nice. Lot of questions answered for me, because I was looking at informal recyclers around my community, where they keep constantly burning low value plastic, saying ये इसमें तो कुछ नहीं मिलता है मैडम, उसमें कुछ नहीं मिलता है, and they keep burning it or doing different kinds of things. What I did as an exercise that you asked in one of the modules was, I mean, the first module, where one of the things where you asked us to go in and look around our house, the kinds of plastic that's there in your house. And I was just appalled at the amount of MLP that's there. And I thought I'm a conscious consumer, but it was in my face, the MLP actually, that everything, in spite of us reducing it, so it almost became like, that I could reduce it because I have the privilege of going and making conscious choices, which are coming at a cost.
Yeah.
But with the SWM amendment now, there is no hope now, because even our community's dry waste, when I followed it all the way till the end, what I realized was a good percentage of it is MLP, which goes to cement processing plants. So the fly ash residue, is it really monitored to that this thing? I'm assuming there's some residue, right, in this cement processing plants,
Yes,
co-processing.
Madhuri. Yeah.
So, what are the regulations in place, and is there data where I don't need to dig, but it's in my face, so that it can be shared, where we start, putting pressure to stop using this rather than waiting for alternatives?
Yes, Madhuri. So the only regulation that is available for multi-layer packaging, because everything what is happening with the MLP is like under the extended producer responsibility of the plastic waste management rules, each of the producer is given a target. So what they're doing is they are collecting back the multi-layer packaging from the market, and they are sending it to a waste to energy plant or a cement industry for co-processing. And the only regulation that is available at this waste to energy plant is the SEMS, that is monitoring your CO levels, SOx and NOx. Apart from that, there's no regulation which says that the fly ash content should be only, although there's a percentage that the fly ash content and the bottom ash should not be greater than 25%, but it's not continuously monitored. You rightly said that there's a need to change at the production level. We need to talk about reduction of the multi-layer packaging at the production level, rather than talking about how to handle MLP for the coming 5 years. Yeah, we'll move to the questions in the chat box. Can you please name the plastics? Okay, I'm done with Ben. Sayuj, India and most world countries are now facing a high increase in the medical waste, and I would like to know the recyclable possibilities of these products which are considered as contaminated. I will elaborate the question when you read this.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Sayuj.
Hi. Thank you. So I wanted to ask about this. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Sayuj. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about this medical waste that is piling up now, because of the single use of all these things, these are becoming a very big amount of waste. So once these are, even though if these can be classified into these PET or PP or PS, can we actually recycle them with the other plastics which are available, because they can be considered contaminated, right?
Yes, Sayaj, I'll be very specific with the question. So we are talking about the biomedical waste, or the waste that is being used during the pandemic at a general household. Let's say the waste that is being used at the general household are mostly masks and gloves. These two masks cannot be recycled, so they should be treated. If you look at the guidelines of the COVID-19 waste handling COVID guidelines, it clearly says that this waste should be collected separately after the households keep the waste for 72 hours in isolation. So it clearly says that if at all you are using a mask, you should save it for 72 hours inside your house, then give it in a separate way to the urban local body who is collecting the waste. And this urban local body should treat this waste as domestic hazardous waste. So when I say domestic hazardous waste, ULB should have a tie-up with a TSDF or a biomedical facility to handle the masks which are not recyclable. So all the masks should go for incineration, and all your gloves can be autoclaved, processed and recycled. Gloves can be recycled. But the problem is like none of the urban local bodies I see have a tie-up for handling the domestic hazardous waste.
Okay, I'm also talking about the medical waste from the hospitals like PPE kit as well. But what I am actually trying to say is that now shouldn't we start a follow up to all these plastics now, because now we are facing this piling up of waste only because we didn't follow up 30 or 40 years ago, and now we are actually considering all these things. So since now we have a chance and we are informed about the hazardous effects of this plastic and these medical items, shouldn't we consider a possibility of recycling now itself, so that we don't know how long this will go?
Yes, so all the waste which you're talking about, biomedical waste, that comes under the Biomedical Waste Management Rules 2016. And as per the rules, every facility, every hospital, every bedded, non-bedded clinic should have a tie-up with the common biomedical waste treatment facility. So all that waste goes to a CBWTF with 5 level of segregation. So at household we talk about 2-way segregation, blue, green, and the recently introduced the 3rd way, domestic hazardous waste. But a hospital, so the biomedical waste is generated at the hospital. So this waste is treated through common biomedical treatment facility. So that comes under the other rules. So it is happening. So if you look at the recent report also by Central Pollution Control Board, which is submitted to the National Green Tribunal, it says that India have a facility to handle 840 tons of biomedical waste every day, and it was handling 690 tons of biomedical waste earlier to the pandemic. And due to pandemic, 110 ton of COVID waste per day is additionally generated, and totally around 710 tons of total biomedical waste is being handled. So if you look at the records, it says that every biomedical waste is handled very properly.
Okay, I have another question if I have the time. Hello?
Yes, Ayush, please go.
So this is about the PROs. So which companies are supposed to connect with the PROs? Does it depend on the turnover of the company or the waste generated by them?
It's only based on the waste generated by them, Sayush. So EPR rule says that they should first, every company should first register with CPCB if they have operations in more than 2 states. If a company has operations in 1 or 2 states, it should register with the respective SPCB. So then they'll submit a form 1 which says that this financial year or the last financial year, my plastic waste consumption is this much tons, and I will collect back this much percentage of plastic waste back from the market. So that's when they have a tie-up with PRO.
Okay, so is this applicable to the small scale industries in smaller villages?
Everywhere.
Okay, so PROs can be working in the small scale as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I'll move to the next question. India and most worlds are now facing. Okay, SIU is done. Nandita, Tetra Pak has made some attempts to take responsibility for their products. CPR. I have 2 questions. How successful are they in India, and is there any pressure on companies like Pepsi, Coke to do the same, especially when it comes to MLP? So Nandita, Tetra has been doing this ever since, even before EPR guidelines were in the plastic waste management rules. As far as I remember, Tetra has been doing it for past 15 years, and the Tetra Global claims that the recycling percentage of Tetra is somewhere around 69%, and 69% and 90% for their own Tetra Paks. Tetra is the brand. It is a multi-layered liquid container. Tetra is only one brand. There are a lot of other brands which are which are Tetra Pak is one brand. There are a lot of other brands which produce the similar kind of 6-layered containers for liquid transportation. So Tetra Pak recycling is somewhere around 69, and their own products is somewhere around 90%. So Tetra has a very good network of collection bag systems, and they have forward linkages as well. What they do is, I don't call it perfectly recycling. So they break the MLP packets, they extrude it, add add binding chemicals to it, that is the gum, and they make roofing kind of structures, so that that can be used as a board, park bench, or some roofing structures. But my question here is like, if, since it is not recyclable, I'll show you a product that is made out of Tetra Pak. Just give me 2 seconds. Yeah, this is the product that is made out of the Tetra packet. So if you closely look, these are all the broken particles of.
Dinesh, we can't hear you.
Okay. So this is the item that is made out of Tetra packets. So Tetra packet is shredded into small pieces. These are the milk packets or the Tetra packets, and made into small boards. So these boards can be used for roofing structures, and Tetra has a tie-up with Bajaj Auto Electronic or Bajaj Auto. And if you look at any auto, any green color auto or the yellow black color auto that runs the three wheel auto, the seat that you sit on, the base of that seat is made of this Tetra Pak board. But my real question is like, how many park benches can you make out of this Tetra Pak? I mean, what is the demand for this park benches? And yes, Pepsi and Coke also have a lot of pressure to work on this extended producer responsibility. I'll add few more companies to it. Recently, the NGT has asked.
दिनेश वॉल्यूम
वॉल्यूम कम है.
हाँ, थोड़ा धीरे से आ रही है आवाज.
Recently, NGT has asked what is the response of Amazon and Flipkart as well, in which Flipkart clearly said that okay, there's no clear data available for Flipkart and Amazon. How much are they using and how much are they collecting back? So apart from Coke, Pepsi, all these some around 52 companies have served notices by the Central Pollution Control Board asking them what is your plan to collect back the multi-layer packaging. So Nandita, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It would be nice to know, how much pressure the government is putting on these large corporations, because as you say very correctly, the point is to reduce, consumption, but an individual can only do so much. There's only, as you said, so many, plastic bags that you can, you can't use, you don't use, you don't buy chips, things like that. But if the commodity itself is coming in these packs, what do you do about it? So I just feel that there should be so much more pressure on these large organizations to really make a decision to change the way that they produce. Nestle, and as you know, there are some 10 companies that actually own 90% of the brands. So it's just about that responsibility on that level.
Yeah. So Nandita, I'll tell you an example. So this happened maybe some 6 months ago. So the sustainability head of the Coke comes on a larger international platform. So this is in Davos, I believe. So she comes on the international platform and she says that, look, we are not going to let go of the usage of single-use plastic in our packaging. So, I mean, she did not say do hell with the regulations of the world. She did not say that word, but actually what she meant is like, no matter what the world talk about the single-use plastic, we Coke are not going to let go of the single-use plastic because we have no options. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the view, or that's the responsibility of the so-called larger corporates.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Madhuri, I guess you had a turn and I've answered your question. Thomas, Nikhil, Ishani and all, I would like to know whether the 30 or 40 microns thin shopping bags used in India are really oxo biodegradable and contact O2 in air. While working in Muscatoman, I have seen that the hypermarkets, Lulu, using such, CO2 which degrade got broken if kept idle for some months. Yes, Thomas, Lulu Mall is being using this oxo biodegradable plastics carry bags even in the state of Kerala as well. Kerala also have a large Lulu supermarket. They use oxo biodegradable, but there are no regulations in India which can stop the usage of oxo biodegradable. So it breaks into smaller components. Oxo biodegradable breaks even more faster than the biodegradable plastics. So, Mr. Thomas, we cannot hear you.
Mr. Thomas, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, thank you for the good information you have provided there. Am I audible?
Yes, Thomas.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the good information you have provided there. So I have seen this bag there in Muscat while I was working there in Lulu. What you told is correct there. And in Kerala also I have seen this which has been degrading. It's very thin microfilm like that. But now is it banned now in that plastic there?
No, Nikhil. I mean, it's not banned in India. Also, CPCB doesn't have any legal authority or the legal clause to ban the oxo biodegradable because the rules doesn't talk about it. Because there's a very high chance of industry coming back to CPCB saying that how did you ban the oxo biodegradable? Because the law doesn't talk anything about biodegradable. What is the provision that made you to ban oxo biodegradable? That's why CPCB did not ban oxo biodegradable in India as of right now.
Okay, and here I would like to share some idea like that. Here I have seen in Canada, the Walmart, they are making the milk cans and the plastic bottles, water bottles, they crush and they make the shopping bags with that. So it's lots of initiatives they are doing. And recently I have been to one of the canned recycling centers. I'm getting training for that. So they are going to crush these bottles. So while we buy this milk or any beverage cans, for example, this water bottles, and the government takes a deposit there, and that deposit will be refunded to you. So when you take these clear cans to a facility, it's called it's a
It's
refund
deposit
of
refund scheme.
deposit refund. This is
Yeah.
just to encourage the things like that. I'm just learning this there. So lots of people are coming. So not only plastics, because we can also the glass bottles also, like beer bottles, for example. Then different bottles there, they can be reused also there. So what they do is that they crush this. No, first they compact these plastic bottles there. Later they go to the two processing plants here, because I'm in the central part of Canada. It's called Saskatchewan. They have a Sarcan. It's called Sarcan. Saskatchewan Recycling Canada. It's called. So what they do is crushing the plastics, different HDP, LDP, and together they make it like that.
Yeah.
So that's a
So
good initiative.
yes,
we are doing.
Thomas.
So yeah.
Canada have a very good facility. You have this recycling centers, scrub recycling centers as well.
Yep.
But it's still at the nascent stages in India, where most of the recycling happens in an informal way and at a very small scale level. So I don't see any urban local body taking full responsibility of establishing a centralized facility and taking all the materials there and doing it. If you look, Canada has this facility also, which clearly says what are the kind of plastics that can be recycled, what are the items they take and they don't recycle. But it's not the case within India, wherein you get all the mixture of all the plastic waste.
Yeah. So what I am asking is that such an institute like CSC, can they have one say or like that in order to start such initiatives like that? Do you know what I mean? Like that. So if people are encouraged so that they are getting the deposits like that, say by a milk can like that. So why don't you try in that way like that?
Yeah,
So
we
then more and more.
proposed, yeah, Thomas, we
Yeah,
proposed a lot because when you look at the EPR, extended producer responsibility, we are
yeah,
still talking at getting back the products into the stream.
yeah,
But EPR is a very larger concept wherein buyback system is only one tool.
yeah,
Deposit refund scheme is the other tool. There are a lot of tools for EPR, and EPR also talks about longevity of the product, reducing the toxicity of the materials in the product, making the product very sustainable way, procurement of the plastics in a sustainable way. EPR talks about all these things, but unfortunately, still in India, EPR is only about collecting back the plastics after the usage and sending it to a recycling facility. I guess that I believe that these things will improve in the coming past because once the collection back systems are established, might be the producers will focus on the other issues as well.
yeah. And can I ask another question like
Yes,
that? We
Thomas.
have
Yeah.
lots of plastics in the we have lots of plastics in the oceans. So
Mhm.
can we do any such method to recover these plastics there? I am a marine biologist actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it would be of interest to different people also there.
Yes, Thomas. I mean, there are a lot of initiatives that are being
Yeah,
happening, like
yeah,
this Great Pacific Ocean Patch, the plastic
yeah,
patch. I mean,
yeah,
the plastic from these are being recovered.
yeah.
That's at the global level, and even at the national level in India, at the Versova beach and most of the beaches in Mumbai, the plastic
Yeah.
is being collected and sent for waste to energy plants or the cement industries. So it's happening, but at a very small scale. All the
Okay.
beach
Yeah.
clean activities. So there's this
Exactly.
guy,
Yeah.
Afroz Shah, who's heading this initiative in Mumbai. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of activities happening, but at a very small scale.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for the
yeah.
information.
Thank you,
Okay.
Thomas. So I'll move to the
Thank
next
you.
question. Yeah, I guess Anupriya question is done. Nickel is are PRO defunct now? What is the status? So Nickel PROs are defunct as of right now, but the new guidelines talks about PROs. Uh, this happened in 2019 May. May around 27 is the 27 is once when CPCB has dissolved all the producer responsibility organizations, and there are no PRO functionality as of right now, but the recent guidelines of the extended producer responsibility talks about PROs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just another thing.
Uh,
I wanted to add to what Mr. Thomas was saying.
uh,
That is, we are trying to recycle or recover through a take back scheme or whatever deposit return scheme, and but whatever happens is a sort of down cycle, right? So who's going to take care of what happens to these recycled plastics now? Where do they end up? It's like something I read in the morning today. We need a cradle to cradle approach and not a cradle to a burial sort of
Brave
approach.
approach. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
who's going to? It exactly doesn't become a circular economy. Rather, it is just a short-term, what you can say, solution, right? What can be a long-term solution?
So, Nikhil, I mean, there's no one single long-term solution. Like, of course, recycling can be done only for 4 or 5 times because once you recycle the plastic more, the quality of the plastic reduces, and you need to add virgin plastic materials to that plastic so that you can reuse that plastic which is recycled. So the other thing is tracking of these recyclable items, and recycling mostly happens. Let's say why does a plastic chair that is made of PP by one big brand, let's say Neil Kamal, cost you somewhere around 700 or 900, and a local plastic chair costs you around only 200 or 300 rupees because that is the quality of the plastic. And this quality, the unbranded or the locally made chair, is made of plastic that is very much contaminated. PP, the quality of PP is very low. And who's going to track it? At the end of the day, the Nilkamal PP chair and the low quality PP chair, which is made at the household level or a household recycling facility, reaches the recycling center at the same time or in the same stream. So who's going to track that? That's a very big thing. I mean, a clear value chain must be. I mean that needs to be introduced. Maybe that can change the face, but there's no single specific solution, Nikhil.
Okay. And regarding what Madhuri said about fly ash, is fly ash the only outcome of incinerating MLPs? Because I think, if I'm not wrong, fly ash bricks and stuff are incentivized by GST is low on it, or I think exempt from it. So is fly ash brick that beneficial, or there are some downsides to it too?
Nikhil, apart from fly ash, there's also bottom ash that comes out of a waste to energy plant. The problem with the fly ash and the bottom ash is the toxicity level of this, because the bottom ash has lot of unburnt particles, and the brick that is made out of this unburnt particles are not being accepted by the developer, because even the developer doesn't want a toxic material in their construction items. So the demand for these construction items are the bricks that is made of this fly ash are very low. The demand side of it is not there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
you. Yeah, we'll move to Aniket. Yes, Aniket, there are other models. Sweden, we have given one international case study on Sweden, where the recycling happens in a very proper way. They have a very proper chain, how the plastic reaches from the household to a facility. So you can go through that presentation. That's one good example of proper recycling facility and the proper recycling at home as well. Apart from that, China has somewhere around 143 different kinds of plastics that segregate. And one of my colleague, Dr. Sonia, went to Ambikapur, where the plastic is being segregated somewhere around 100 plus different categories of plastics. Even in let's say LDPE colored items, blue plastic bag, the colorful plastic bag, green plastic bag, so that is segregated separately. Sonia, it was somewhere around 100 plus different categories of plastic, right?
It's 156 categories.
Yeah, so we have a best case study in our own backyard. So Ambikapur is actually doing it, apart from some international case studies.
So is the segregation done manually, or is there some kind of technology that is being used for segregation?
No, Aniket, it's done manually. I mean, Ambikapur have a very good segregation percentages from starting from the source, and it happens. I mean, it reaches a material recovery facility, and at the material recovery facility, it happens manually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Aniket. You had mentioned that CPCB has a list of approved compostable bag manufacturers. Please, can you share this list? Yeah, sure. Nandita will share that list as well. Okay, Aniket has already shared it. I also found the same list. Thank you. Okay, Aniket and your list is updated. Okay. How to recycle Tetra Pak container, from where government of right organizations we can get the technical support. Yes, I believe that I answered this question, Shekhar. Madhuri, I read about Sweden model of effective recycling. Is this primary recycling, but effectively anything else in downcycling?
Actually, Dinesh, I could explain my question.
Yes, Madhuri.
What I was trying to understand was, I had seen.
Madhuri, can you be a little louder, please? I cannot hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what I was sharing was that although the Sweden model is, like revered in the world, global context, but I have seen documentaries where they shared about, that although we call it effective recycling, there's a lot of things which actually get shipped somewhere or used in waste to energy plants, where the toxic ash that comes out is actually eventually landfilled. My question is that although it's out of sight, it's still there as in a very toxic form, right? Is that a model that we can adopt actually as India? Because we don't even have space like that to actually go and bury toxic ash. And the second question is, there's a big drive in India to say that, waste to energy is the best way forward. And although we are looking at, there are a lot of dry waste collection centers which are segregating it to the there's a lot of mafia which wants actually a WTE to be set up. And I have heard scary stories about that also with the thing that's in the north. I don't remember the exact location. It's somewhere close to Delhi, right? The WTE. I have participated in a webinar where they shared that it's quite bad for the people living around there. So my question is, with all this knowledge, what do you think is the way forward as a as an individual, how can I contribute? And as a person who can pressurize, like what can we do to actually bring about a larger change, that rather than small drops here and there?
Yeah, so Madhuri, it's true that the Sweden model is based on the waste to energy. I mean, all the segregated waste goes to a waste to energy apart from recycling. So, what can go to a waste to energy plants is like a high calorific value, non-recyclable waste. That is the only feed or the fuel for the waste to energy
Uh,
plants.
Dinesh, थोड़ा सा volume.
So the waste to
Yeah.
energy plants that we are talking about in Sweden, the output of this waste to energy plants in Sweden is heating purpose, not for generating electricity, but all our waste to energy plants in India are for electricity generation purpose. So the norms for waste to energy plants are very low. All that we have to regulate is 5 norms under the solid waste management rules. Apart from that, there's no norms for the waste to energy plants. You need to only monitor 5 emissions from the waste to energy plants. I can show you that list as well. Yes, waste to energy plant has been pushed as a solution, a silver bullet for all the waste. Like it started in 1990s. 87 is the first plant that is established in Delhi. It has been pushed as a solution for all your waste. Let's say even if you have low segregation percentages, you can burn the waste. This is how the waste to energy plants are pushed. And out of 14 waste to energy plants, around 7 are dysfunctional on paper, and if at all I look on ground, only 4 are functional. So recently Jabalpur plant has also shut down. The only 3 functional plants are in Delhi. And Abhishek, if you can stop sharing the screen, Abhishek. Yeah, so I mean, waste to energy plants cannot be a perfect solution. Abhishek, can you stop sharing the screen, please? Shani, can you stop Abhishek from sharing?
No, I'm trying that. I can't do that. I'm asking him to unmute himself so that maybe I think he's not there. I'll contact him.
Yeah. So yeah,
Give
Madhuri.
me.
Yeah. So I mean, waste to energy plant cannot be a solution. So the only thing that can be done, I mean, increasing the segregation percentages. I cannot clearly say what might be the solution, because even after many successful stories, the government is also pushing for waste to energy plants. It's not a lobby, but the Niti Aayog has also proposed that the waste to energy plants capacity in India should be increased, and there is a committee also being formed for waste to energy commission, something like that at the national level. And let's say if at all I want to establish a decentralized waste management facility, I don't have any incentives from the government. The only incentive I have is for compost. I get 1500 rupees for 1 ton of compost I generate at a decentralized waste processing facility. If at all I go for a waste to energy plant, around 35% of my capital cost is being covered under subsidies. So that's the push for waste to energy plants that is being happening.
What is this polycrack technology that is being doing the rounds now, the new one?
Sorry, Nikhil?
The polycrack waste to energy plant, which I have read about recently.
I mean, Nikhil, there are a lot of technologies in waste to energy plants. There's plasma torch technology. There's, there are a lot of technologies involved in using the waste to generate energy. I'm not particularly sure or come across this polycrack.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I'll move to the next question. Ajay, domestically. Okay, microplastic. I'll show you some reports, Ajay. Plastic video recording. Pick up or segregates. Okay. Share the list of categories. Okay. We'll try to get you the list, Nandita, of 156 categories. We need so many types of plastic. 267. Isn't it possible to streamline the number of plastics types. Nikhil, the answer to your question is like, why is it only 267? There might be more than 267 types of plastics because each producer and each manufacturer or each multi-layer packaging manufacturer requirements are different. So that's when I go to a producer and say that this is the kind of barrier capacity I need for my product. Manufacture a product that is in line with this, or manufacture a product which has a very good printing capacity outside my packet. Let's say my chips packet needs this type of printing, so I need a particular type of plastics. That's when different kind of plastics comes into market. It might be more than 267 as well. Okay, Sonia has shared the report from where government
Yes,
or private
please.
organizations can.
Little
Yes,
louder,
Atin.
please.
Yes,
Could
Atin.
you?
Okay. Yes, Atin. From where government or private organizations can we get the technical support for setting up a recycling plant? Uh, Shekhar, I'm not sure where you will get technical support for a recycling plant, but what I suggest you is like if at all you can visit some, pick some recycling plants. Every state pollution control board would be having a list of recycling plants in their state. Let's say I found it for the state of Odisha. Odisha has a list. A lot of states doesn't have, but it should have the list. So SPCB will have the list. Odisha have, I guess Maharashtra also have the list of recycling facilities on their website. You can visit their recycling facilities and get to know. And I guess there are a lot of consultants who would be providing technical support for setting up a recycling facility. Okay, Aniket, regarding EPR, can the district administration enforce EPR at the district level? Is there any specific guidelines for the same? Okay, Aniket, after the plastic waste management rules are being published, so it's the responsibility of the urban local body and the gram panchayats to pass a bylaw for the plastic waste management rules. Once the bylaw is in place, then the district administration or the municipal administration can enforce the plastic waste management rules. These bylaws very clearly have the conditions under the rules. These bylaws will have the fines that can be collected from the violator of, let's say, individual is using the banned plastic bag. How much would be the fine? Let's say a manufacturer is manufacturing plastic bag which is less than 50 microns. What should be the fine? All these conditions are included in that bylaws, and once the bylaws are passed by the council and active in the gazette, that is when the district administration and the municipal corporation can enforce the PWM 2016. Okay, Madhuri, can you share the norms of a plastic pellet making unit? Our plan is to empower the informal recyclers around our community. I'll find it out, Madhuri, because we don't have any norms for plastic pellet making. It all depends upon the technology that you adopt. It's a basic technology where you wash the plastics, then dry the plastics, and then heat it to make it into a paste form, then threads. I can show you some technologies that helps in plastic recycling. I'll find out some norms as well.
So I'm asking actually not about the technology is one aspect, but also the setup norms, actually the pollution, the emissions, all of that.
Sure.
Because this is what they do, but they kind of just wash the plastic, and there's a nearby river where the water is dumped into that.
Yeah.
We're just trying to understand what are the norms set by the state or the government.
Okay.
For that, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sure, Madhuri, I'll do that. Yeah, so I'm done with the questions in the chat box. If at all someone has some more questions, or then we can close the session. And I'd like to say that next week we'll be having some live sessions, but we'll try to keep it in the evening around 3 o'clock. So I'll send you a mail to all of you as well. But on 18th, 19th, and 20th, we have a live session, 3 days. And we'll be covering circular economy on 20th, and 19th we'll be covering plastic free kitchens, and on 18th we'll be covering sustainable plastic packaging free living and sustainable consumption patterns. This is what we'll cover on 18th, and 17th we'll cover all the NGT cases that are involved with the plastic. I'll send you a mail as well to all of the participants with the topics and the timing. We'll share you the Zoom link a day before.
Will you be able to send us the information today or tomorrow so we can plan it on work?
Yes, Nandita. So it would be on 18th, 19th, and 20, mostly evening 3 o'clock. I'll send you the information on the mail as well, Nandita.
Thank you.
Yep. So I guess none of the participants have some questions. So Atin, do you want to add something? Atin or Sonia? Sonia, do you want to add something? Atin or Sonia or Ishani? Anyone from the team would like to add something?
No, Dinesh. I think everything has been covered by you. But even if any of the participant has further question, maybe they can post on the forum that you have on the website as well, on the Moodle link. Yeah.
So if any of the participants miss their question, you can post it on the discussion forum as well. So Atin, do you want to add something?
Discussion and all the questions were very interesting and very nicely responded by you. I just want to conclude with one small remark from my end. So at present there's a typical tendency among all of us, the producers as well as the end users, to create the waste first and then think of a technology or think of solutions with which we can. The participants may be aware, like the currently the flagship program, which is basically addressing the waste management issue, is the Swachh Bharat Mission, which also has both urban and rural portfolio. So under this mission, basically a lot of outreach activity people about this menace. So basically the initiative has to begin from the household, from all of us. We have to set an example to tell others how to do it. So we need to find ways to reduce plastic at the first place, particularly the recyclable or which are not which are single-use plastic per se. So that is the need of the hour, and this sensitization program, the outreach program, which is primarily focused on about our behavior to bring more plastics at home. And if you look at how it has evolved, then you find out a very interesting story that we have practically like if we are going to the market to buy anything, we go with empty hands. We don't carry a bag from home, a cloth bag or a nylon bag or a jute bag, which we used to do about 30-40 years back when our fathers or our the elderly people at home, they used to have this practice. So this message needs to be sent out. Obviously we need to think about the technologies, the kind of plastics that we are dealing with, and which is recyclable, which is not recyclable, the chemical compounds and the present technology solutions. We need to look at all these issues. At the same time, we need to find out ways to reduce it at the first place, because the more we reduce it, the problem will keep on increasing. So I would request all the participants to at least try and begin this practice at home, and then spread this awareness in the neighborhood. At the same time, we've also, on behalf of CSC, with the government to reinforce this outreach program. There are excellent tools developed for behavioral change, which are technically known as triggering tools. So it is basically, there are tools to trigger communities, to trigger individual, and then the segregation, which is obviously of paramount importance. So looking at the amount of plastic which is being recycled as compared to the total amount of plastic that is being generated across the whole country, basically gives us a horrifying story, right? So we need to find out ways to reduce it, and we can do it by using more sustainable and recyclable products, and we by which basically we can, we can contribute to bring less plastic at home. So that's the need of the hour. So I thought like it would be useful to share this in this opportune moment. So thank you, Dinesh, for an excellent live session, and thank you all the participants for a very vibrant participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, then we'll close the session. Thank you so much, participants.